now we are about to bring in two more people for our next segment. This is going to be the tarot panel. And so here we go. Let's make sure everybody gets joined in.
Hello.
Hey, good afternoon.
Okay.
Welcome to the party.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and we're going to properly introduce you.
Yes.
Jeannie, would you like to go first?
Yes, I'm going to start with Kris. Kris Waldherr's many books include the Gothic novel The Lost History of Dreams and Unnatural Creatures. A novel, The Frankenstein Women, is another book, and it was an Amazon and Barnes & Noble best-selling book, which was named an Editor's Choice by the Historical Novel Society and a Best Book of the Year by the Washington Independent Review of Books. Kris is also the creator of the Goddess Tarot, which is over 250,000 copies in print. And right now, the Goddess Tarot has its own Kickstarter underway to commemorate the 25th anniversary of its publication, which ends in 2 days. So go over there and check out her Kickstarter. Yes. And she also teaches tarot to writers and reads tarot professionally. So thank you, Kris, for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, and welcome, Susan. Writing for a variety of media outlets since 2010, and I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your last name right. Susan, is it Earlam?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. Pivoted to fiction when the call of the strange and unusual grew irresistible. Now she mixes words like potions at her laptop at the edges of the Peak District, UK. She procrastinates by writing shorter and weirder stuff. Her novel, Echo Horror Earthly Bodies, came out in 2021, and her horror flash fiction collection, Dark is the Water, came out in 2022. She's currently working on a second novel. That's exciting. So welcome, you two.
Yes.
And unfortunately, Maria had to cancel some unforeseen circumstances. And so, you know, we're basically going to turn this time over to you guys to do the tarot panel, and we will keep track of our viewers asking questions or comments. And so we're so excited that you guys could join us today.
So
thank you.
Well, we're delighted to be here, obviously, and it's nice to meet you, Susan. And it sounds like you've made, so how should we begin? I mean, we're both tarotists. What are you working with? What decks do you like to work with? Let's start from the decks.
Yeah, I tend to, if I'm doing readings, either for somebody else or for friends, I don't do them professionally or anything. I tend to use the traditional Rider-Waite just because I just know it so well, and I can kind of, I feel like I just can interpret it quite easily with the colours and the symbolism and stuff. But I've started to spread my wings, as you might say, and I've got a few other decks. One's called is it the Dream Weaver's Tarot or something, and it's kind of uses a lot of dream symbolism. It's some of the cards are the same, but some of them are sort of different representations of the same sort of iconography, if you want a better word. I'm guessing you use the Goddess Tarot.
It's funny you say that because I use a lot of different decks. I always like to tell my students that choosing a tarot deck, it's like, what friend do you want to hang out with today?
Yeah.
So when I was creating the Goddess Tarot, I was thinking that I wanted it to be a kind of a nurturing sort of deck, but the kind of deck that if you're having kind of a rough day, it would like pour you a cup of tea and say, there's a way around this. Let's sit down and figure it out. But I find that a lot of times I default to the Rider-Waite-Smith. And you're right about so many tarot decks are based on the Rider-Waite-Smith. And you know why that is? Because
it's one of the best, because it's got all the wide, literally sort of every kind of sort of iconography or story can be kind of laid out in there.
Right. Well, I always say that every time you shuffle the cards, you get a new story. But the interesting thing about the Rider-Waite-Smith was that before Pamela Coleman Smith created the deck, I think it was 1909, there weren't any cards with pictures on the pips, which were the cards that were ace to 10. And so that's something that totally revolutionized tarot, making it much more accessible to the average layperson. So I have the Rider-Waite here, as well as the Goddess Tarot. And, you know, if you like, I can pick a card for you if you have any questions.
Why not? It seems it's just us two.
I mean, it's more fun to play with the cards than to talk about them. I can talk about them forever. I mean, they're so rich. And I always say that they're just like storytelling systems. You know, you have the major arcanas, which are like the hero or heroine's return. Then you have the minor arcanas, which are more like the details of life that you need to kind of fill in stuff. So let's begin. Which deck would you like me to work with you?
I'll go with the goddess one. I've not actually explored your deck, to be honest,
well,
so I'd love to get to know it a bit
It's
better.
based on the Rider-Waite-Smith because it is the most popular deck. And most tarot decks, they use the Rider-Waite-Smith for the symbolism because of the pips. And the interesting thing about a tarot deck that I think a lot of people who are new to working with the tarot don't realize is that if you know a playing card deck, you basically know the minor arcana. It's very, very similar. It's, you know, ace through 10. And then instead of 3 court cards, you have 4, which depending on the Rider-Waite-Smith, it's, you know, what you would think. There's a page, knight, king, queen, and the goddess tarot. I have prince, princess, king, and queen. So do you have a particular question in mind?
I always say, what do I need to know right now? That's my classic
That's the question I always tell my students. If you don't know what to ask the tarot, I mean, the tarot's going to tell you what you need to know anyway.
I like to keep it open.
I think that's very wise. So what does Susan need to know right now? And I'm going to shuffle. You tell me when you want me to stop. When it feels right to you.
That's fine. All that's fine. Yep.
Should I cut the cards?
No, take the one from the top.
Okay. All right. So what we have is the 10 of Swords. And in my particular deck, it's more about coming to the end of an intellectual journey. Like you've learned what you need to do, and you may be feeling a little battered here and there, but you're ready to move on and to maybe even share your knowledge with others in order to make it easier for them as they go along. Now, with the Goddess Tarot, you can see that it's a decoration of the 10 cards interwoven. And I did that on purpose because I wanted it to be about, this is the most intense expression of this particular energy. And to my mind, swords are about intellectual understanding. And I always say when I'm working with writers that this is the editor suit. Basically, it's you've created your wonderful, whatever it is, flash fiction book. Then you put it out into the world and you wait to hear back what others have to say. And sometimes they prune it and it can be a little intense, or other times you just get the knowledge you need to move forward. So the appearance of this card suggests to me that if you were working on something, or if there's like some sort of creative cycle, you've come to the end of that particular road before a new cycle begins, and you're now incorporating everything you've wanted to know.
I've in my own personal readings I've been doing, sort of when I've asked for a card of the day or something, this card has come up quite a lot, and it is quite fitting because I am approaching the end of this edit that I'm doing on this next book, and it's almost ready to go to my editor, and I'm just kind of, you know, at that stage where you're like, is it ready to go? Yeah, I need to just do this bit. Is it ready to go? And I'm just kind of
the overthinking
kind of like,
yeah. No, I get it. Let's choose another one just for like the path forward, because it seems like that's where you are right now.
And sure.
You let me know when you want me to stop. And
one more.
Going. One more. I feel that way too.
Okay.
Do you want me to cut the cards?
Yeah, let's cut them this time.
All right. So what do we have here? Okay, we have the 5 of Cups. I get the sense that you're very critical of yourself and that you feel almost a sense of mourning about letting this particular draft go. And you're focusing on what you doesn't have rather than what it does have, because the wonderful thing that a lot of people don't notice with the 5 of Cups, and this is very similar to the Pamela Coleman Smith card in the Rider-Waite-Smith. She's walking away. There are 3 cups which have spilled, and with cups there, in my mind, tied to emotion, and also just tied to inspiration, like receptivity. You know, when you think about like water and how it flows around us and how we take it in and how it nurtures seeds so things may grow. And I think that your big worry is that you haven't lived up to the inspiration that you were given, and that brings you a certain amount of sorrow. But there's wonderful news with this card that if you notice, there's 2 cards standing up and they're still filled with water. So I think that maybe with everything going on, you maybe need a little time to recalibrate to be able to appreciate what you've created.
Yeah.
But it's hard because I know that there's always kind of a little bit of a postpartum mourning when you create something and you let it out. Even if you've known that you've thought about it and you've edited and you've done your best, it's now separate from you. It's no longer your precious baby that you've been holding on to. So I think that that's kind of what you maybe need to anticipate, because maybe that makes it easier to let your baby, your creative baby, if you will, move out into the world. So if you anticipate that, then how can you deal with this so that you're a happy writer and you're ready for the next particular inspiration that comes to you from the muses? So let's choose one card to sum it up.
Let's go for one more.
Yeah. And
Thank you for this. It's like unexpected, but very, very much appreciated.
Yeah. Thank you. No. I love reading. I can read for hours and I have read for hours. I've read at conferences for like hundreds of people like lined up, and it makes me feel good. All right, you let me know when you want me to stop.
Let's stop.
All right, from here or cut?
Yeah, from there, yeah.
I love this. We've got the King of Staves. This is just about knowing that creative energy is going to be infusing you. It's just part of the cycle where you are right now, where maybe you feel a little bit depleted. But I also think that the King of Staves, it can see, the great thing about court cards are that they can symbolize an aspect of yourself as well as somebody in your life. So it could be both. It could be your editor. It could also be some part of you that is able to move forward with confidence with your work once you get past the mourning and the overcritical thinking and all of that, and the circular thinking, if you're like me, where you're questioning yourself. But I also think that there's a certain amount of trust that when you're a creative person, that you're going to reach a certain level of authority that a king represents to you, that you are able to advocate for your work once you get to this point. But in the meantime, just watch out. I would say if you're feeling very critical, just know that's part of the process and trust that you're going to be inspired again. And also look for people who fire you up with inspiration, who leave you feeling good, who are supportive. Stay away from the Debbie Downers right now. You need support. You need enthusiasm. You need somebody to go rah, rah, rah.
Thank you. Sure. What have you, are these paintings or what?
These are paintings that I
Have you done it? Have you actually created it?
Yeah, I created this deck. The story is that I created a book called The Book of Goddesses, and I noticed that all of the goddesses kind of worked as a major arcana. And I should show you a major arcana card, which isn't as tied to the Rider-Waite-Smith. So here is the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. This would correspond to the Emperor. In mine, it's called Power, and it corresponds to the goddess Freya, who is very powerful. And each of the cards in the major arcanas are like that. So I created all the cards, and they've been around for 25 years, but they are based on the Rider-Waite-Smith, which I also have here too. And I love the Rider-Waite-Smith, and I've worked with them so much over the years. But I find that with the Rider-Waite-Smith is that it's very intimidating to new tarot readers. So I try to break down the symbolism to make them realize that, those scary pictures like the 10 of Swords in the Rider-Waite-Smith, or the Tower, or death, it's more than that. So yeah.
Those are the ones you always kind of see depicted in films and on TV, don't you? If there's a tarot reader, they're always gonna end up pulling the death card, and it's always very sort of played upon in those sorts of tropes in movies and things, isn't it?
The other one that they always choose is either the Two of Cups or the Lovers, and it's like, when actually the meaning's a little more subtle than that. So it's interesting. So tell me about, how do you use tarot cards when you're writing?
I use them to kind of sometimes to even just help me with plot or with actual characters. So I'll kind of approach it in the way of, I need an antagonist. What are they going to be kind of like? And then I'll just almost pull cards up and make up a backstory about that person from what I can see. I've actually got for the story that I've written, well, I've not quite finished it yet, but the story that I've written for the anthology, I've got a screenshot of the cards that I pulled up, and I could try and share it if you wanted to have a
Oh, I
quick
would
look.
love that.
I've
I
never
always,
shared anything on
yeah.
before, so I'm just bear with
Oh,
me.
and
Let me see
screen
if I can
sharing,
figure out how
sure.
to do it.
And then I could
Uh,
read the cards. I can read the cards and try to
yeah,
guess
you
what
can
your
have a look at
story
them,
is.
and you can see the other um, decks that I've used as well. Just bear
Yes,
with me one
yeah,
second.
sometimes people
I
will
should
mingle
actually
decks
know how
as
to
they
do
read,
this.
and that's fine too.
Reactions, no. Oh, hang on. Right. I might have to send it to the ladies at the 6 Degrees with Poe because I can't figure out how to do it. Do you know how to share a screen?
Well, if you want, you could tell me the cards, and I
Okay,
can probably interpret them.
let me pull it up anyway. Okay, so I used 4 decks actually, and I just kind of mixed
Oh,
them
okay.
together to sort of symbolize different parts of the story. So I was looking at sort of location first, and I pulled out the moon twice because there were 2 different decks, but the moon came up twice. So I've kind of the location isn't the moon, but I've kind of incorporated the fact that there's 2 moons in the story. Um, for one character, the hanged woman came up because it's obviously based on the hanged man, but it's a woman sort of deck, and the Dreamer of Cups. And both of these are very much well, the hanged woman looks like the hanged man upside down, but she's got her legs sort of so they almost look like one leg in a way. And then the Dreamer of
So it's
Cups.
not akimbo like it is in the Rider-Waite Smith.
No, they're sort of crossed and sort of closed. Very
Right.
cool, sort of. I mean, she is naked, but it almost looks a little bit like a mermaid's tail. But the Dreamer of Cups that also came up for that character is an actual mermaid, and so it's just the imagery is really similar. And so I started
Hmm.
focusing on the imagery quite a lot. So there's kind of like perhaps a mermaid type character in my story, and then for the other character, I got the death card with judgment and
Ooh,
a
that's
card.
intense.
Yeah, a card called the Serpentia, which I think is number 21 in will be what's the card number 21 in the regular tarot
That's the
deck?
world. That's the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
the end
it's
because it's numbered. That's the
yeah,
major arcana is numbered 0 through 21, but there's 22 cards, and it's kind
right.
of like the hero or heroine's journey, where you begin with in the Rider-Waite Smith, you begin with the fool, like the person
Yeah, so he's
setting out
kind of
into the world and ends in the world.
He's
Yeah,
like my kind of he's kind of my protagonist, for want of a better word.
right.
And he is sort of almost like the fool setting out onto this journey, but obviously death is involved. And then I've got the what's that? Oh God, I can't remember his name. There's an artist who does very sort of black line drawings, and they're quite comical. And he's got like a deck, and there's only about 20 cards in it, and they're sort of
Hmm.
a bit of a joke, really, rather than being a proper deck. And I drew one of his, and I got the tunnel, which is basically like an arched doorway, which is just black, surrounded by sort of bricked.
Hmm.
Um, so there's lots of visuals here for me to go on, really, which is kind of how my brain works. Sort of, I almost need to see visuals before I can kind of create the character or the setting, or and I kind of use those to sort of stimulate the story really, and then think about the setting and how what sort of time would that be? Would it be in the past? Would it be in the future? And because we're looking at Poe, obviously, I've decided to set it in the far past,
Hmm.
and it's set sort of by the seaside. So yeah, I'm really excited about the fact that and I didn't really intend on using the tarot so deeply for this, but the cards that came up and the fact that these 2 moons came up in the same area felt very uncanny. Really, it felt kind of this. So I'm not sure if I'm going to incorporate the 2 moons as the name of a pub or the name of a tavern or some sort of.
Well, you know what the moon's
CGI.
also symbolize, and it's funny that you use the word uncanny because it's really about reflected light. It's about what gets displaced. And a lot of times it's also about the maternal, about that which nurtures us as well. There's a lot of ways that it can be interpreted, especially when you think of it in contrast to the sun, which is the next card in the tarot, because it goes it's
Yeah.
the star, which is reflected light also, but it's different. It's what we use to inspire us, inspiration. Next comes the moon, which is about the mother and reflected light and animals, as well as just, more like the emotional things that ground us. And then you come with the sun, which is about creativity and bringing things out in the world in the sun without impeded by reflection. And that often has to do with children. Sometimes, I mean, that's the symbolism, but I think it's really more just about your creative children that you put out.
Yes,
So
totally. Yeah.
it's always useful to see where the cards are laying in relation to other cards that you pull. But I completely agree with you about how the tarot is so incredibly powerful for spurring inspiration. But I also like to say that if you ever get stuck, the tarot is just, there's so many things you can do. I mean, aside of the usual card pulls, you can also use them just to say, is this the right direction? Is that direction? And choose.
Totally. Yeah.
What I like to do is you make a list of all the possibilities, choose a card for each possibility, and then go from there and kind of check in with your gut, because when push comes to shove, the tarot is really about helping us get in touch with our intuition. It's a tool. It's not a be all end all. It's a tool, but it's a very powerful tool.
So are you contributing a story, or is it poem? Or
I'm going to contribute a story, and I'm still working on it, but it's Raphaelite inspired. Because and it's interesting for me because I tend to write very long novels. I mean, not super long. They're usually about 120,000 words or so. So it's a little challenging, but I'm glad to have.
So you're the opposite of me then.
Yeah.
I'm just doing it really short.
I always tell my critique partners, when I write my first drafts, I always know I'm going to cut at least like 20,000 words off it. But I love Poe, and of course, I mean, who doesn't? And it's such a great story. So I love the idea of using it as a metaphor for guilt. And that's something that I'm very comfortable writing about, in that, not that I have anything that I feel guilty about, but I recently took a workshop with Sarah McLean and a few other authors. And one thing they said, which is really, really true, and I'm going to put this out to other authors because it may be something you can think about, is consider what's your core story when you're writing. We each have core stories that we're drawn to, whether it's in a short story or whatever, but it usually has to do with our lives. And I know that for me, no matter how I try, I always end up going to a grief core story, because most of my characters have had some loss in some way, or some parental neglect, or some other situation like that. So once you realize what your core story is, and you can do it, like, even if you're a newer writer, make a list of all of the things that you love, all the things that you're drawn to, see what those core stories are. What commonalities do they have? If you're looking at the tarot, see what cards you're drawn to and see if there's a core story there, if you will. So, my core story is always, it has to do with grief usually, and that usually relates to guilt or things that did not happen that should have. So knowing that, it makes it a lot easier, as others have other core stories that are.
That's quite fitting for Poe, isn't it, really? Because he had
it really
a lot of tragedy in his life, didn't he?
Well, especially when you think about what today is the anniversary of, it's kind of like the beginning of the end for him. So I think that with Poe, there's definitely like a lot of core stories that we can relate to, that besides the Gothic trappings that of course are so wonderful, but there's something deeper there, which I think is why it resonates so for us all these years later. So I'm looking forward to exploring that further.
I like the idea of those core stories, because I tend to write about the same sort of thing as well. Not obviously literally the same thing, but more often than not, my characters start as one thing, and obviously they do go through a change to get to the end of the story, but a lot of the times, especially in my shorter stuff, they are actually physically changing as well in some way, whether it's through becoming a mother or something like that. The bodies go through physical change and transformation, or even sort of more sci-fi and they might have transformed into some other kind of creature. And I'm quite interested in that sort of link between nature and humans and the kind of, that thinness or thick veil between us, and are we that different from animals and all that kind of idea. And so a lot of my work deals with the similarities or the differences and how sometimes we're more similar than we like to think, I think.
Well, I think you just brought up, Susan, something that is really also great that you can use the tarot for, because what you said is absolutely right. Like, characters change during a story. I mean, usually the character who changes the most is the one who's the protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking at character arc, this is another exercise I give my students, is that I have certain cards I call character archetype cards. And some of them are obviously court cards. Some of them are, for example, let's see if I could find, like, I'm going to use the Rider Waite for this because it's a little more obvious. All right, so let's say your character begins as the High Priestess. She's a woman who has a lot of secrets, very protective, perhaps keeps others at a distance. And who does she become? And why does she become? If your last card is going to be Justice, maybe she realizes the reason that she keeps others at a distance is because she doesn't trust the world to be fair. And the only way that she can protect herself from being injured is by keeping this removed. And so that is a character arc that you can explore in that particular story. So I always say, like, if you're starting a story, you can just choose to at random and then make up a story like I just did.
Yeah.
Or if you have an idea, go through the deck and see which ones most resonate for you, because it helps you clarify your thinking. And once your thinking is clear, I find it's much easier for me to write.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you've got I think, again, I go back to the visuals of it. For me, it's kind of, I sometimes will prop them up next to my laptop and be able to kind of look at them while I'm writing and almost feel the colours and feel the atmosphere that might be going on in that scene. And it really helps with creating those ideas in the work, really.
Okay, I'm going to give you one more exercise that I think works great. Have you ever heard of Gestalt therapy?
I have.
Okay, yep.
All right. So what you do is that you can take a card, and you know how with Gestalt therapy, you look upon things from different perspectives. Mm-hmm. So for writers especially, I call this point of view play. You can take a card, set a timer for like 3 minutes, and write from the point of view of different objects in the card. Okay. You can write from the point of view of maybe this person here, right at the point of view of the cup at the top, does it feel precarious? Right at the point of view of the harvest, and just explore the card that way. And then if you want to, you can also write from different points of view. You could write first person point of view, which with Gestalt therapy, that's what you would do. Or you can play by writing it in, omniscient even. Just like to take a card and explore in all these different facets. It helps you go so much deeper. Yeah, it is. But it's great that you're working with so many different decks because, like I said, it's like having different friends you can call on. Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure if the ladies wanted to say something before. Yeah, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to pull cards for people too, like simple, without any identifying information. I pull cards for people all the time on Zoom.
Well, one of our YouTube viewers had put on here that family dysfunction, when you were talking about things that draw you in, when you were talking about it, he said that family dysfunction was one of his, that he was always usually popping in for. And that's one of the things, and I'm like you, grief has always been one of my focuses when I'm doing the tarot and, doing the readings and stuff. So
it's your core story.
Yeah. So, and family dysfunction actually works in there too. So family dysfunction, grief, my own self-worth. I think that's a big thing that people look to, self-esteem. So yeah, I'm like you. I've done tarot readings, but I'm not a big tarot reader. I've always been interested in the occult and the opposite end of the spectrum, so to speak, the supernatural. So,
well, it's interesting to me that people consider the tarot occult. It's just a book. It's just a book of pictures. Yeah, and depending, I mean, it can be used for occult purposes, but it's what you bring to it.
It's just like the
So,
Druid religion to me.
right.
You know, a lot of people bring in the Druid religion when they hear pagan. It's like they automatically put it into a bad connotation when it's not so much a bad connotation. It's just all about interpretation. So yeah, when I think of tarot, I'm like you. I don't think of the occult as, and that's a commercialized word, I guess is what I'm trying to put to it.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent way of looking upon it. It's a commodification. Though,
Mhm.
I mean, you can use tarot in whatever way you want. It's all about your intent. The way I look
Yes,
upon it, though, is that everything is a example of synchronicity.
exactly.
Yeah.
And in, way back when, people would use the nature as oracles, like what is nature doing today? What is the weather? Does this prove that our venture will be successful or not? Did we make sacrifices to the gods or whatever? And the tarot is a way, it's an organized way to explore experience of synchronicity, which of course everybody's experience with a card is going to be different. This is a roadblock that I often come across when I'm teaching tarot, is because I'll have new students who become very uptight about wanting to memorize every single meaning of the 78 cards of the tarot.
Good Lord.
And I have to kind of say, the meaning is going to shift according to, first off, your experiences with the tarot. Secondly, what cards you pull in relation to the tarot. And thirdly, the question you're asking or you're exploring. So it's, it's all about, like anything with synchronicity, like what you experience when you see Edgar Allan Poe is going to be different than what I experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the way that I approach it. And I mean, clearly the cards are very resonant, and that's why they pulled people so much. And so much of that, I think, is because of Pamela Coleman Smith's symbolism, which took the tarot and really made it human, if you will, with all those images. But would you like me to pull a card for you? I'm happy reading for people.
Sure. I'm good.
All
for
right.
it.
Do you want me to choose from the Goddess Tarot or the Rider-Waite?
The Goddess, please.
All right. Do you have a particular question in mind?
Not at this moment. It's just mostly I've had a lot of family on my mind lately, so
Okay.
yeah, because there's been some disruption with siblings. Let's put it that way.
Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm.
I love your flowers, by the way.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess, how about just a card to symbolize this relationship with the siblings and what you need to know right now?
That's
Oops, I got a jumper.
Uh-oh.
A jumper card is when a card really, really wants to make its presence known. So you've got the 9 of Staves here. You are tired and you're taking a little break. Take that break. I also think the great thing about the 9 of Staves is that it's a reminder how much you have accomplished. So give yourself credit for that. So you've kind of like, you've reached this pinnacle and you still see there's more to go, but you're tired and you're also tired of the same old, same old. So this is a card which, like the Hamilton song, take a break, come up, stay, that's what you need to do right now, is whatever emotional turmoil is going on, you don't have to participate. You can be the wise woman and step back and say, you know what, I feel kind of battered by this, so I'm going to take a little break. And then once we're all on the same page, we'll come back together.
Hey, that actually works very well, because that's kind of what I've been trying to do, is not let it rule my thoughts and my emotions, and just kind of let it be their problem and not mine.
So there's your confirmation.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, a jumper card even works better.
Yep, yeah. Well, there's always the jumper cards, or I call them the stalker cards. So that's kind of an unpleasant name. When you have the same card that keeps showing up, it's kind of like saying, hello, I'm in the back, pay attention to me. Hi.
Yeah, it's like shooting spit wads. It's the teacher going, hey, I need attention. Come on.
Yeah, I always tell the story that I was reading for somebody who had this very complicated real estate deal, and it went on for, I swear, like a year. And every time, because the seller was really difficult, and every time I pulled for her, she would always get the devil symbolizing the seller, because he was somebody who was very difficult.
Yeah.
And I watched that card move around on the various layouts I did. Sometimes it would symbolize the past, sometimes it would symbolize what's on her mind. Once she gave up on that particular apartment that she was buying. The card never returned.
Nice.
Yeah,
Wow.
so
I love how the synchronicity works there.
yeah.
So
This kind of shows that she was so tied to it that it was just creating her own. That's what the devil card's
she
all about, isn't
was,
it?
yeah, because because that card is also about obsession and addiction and just like holding
it's
on.
your own. You're in control of the chains, aren't you? You can take them off anytime.
Well,
So
the interesting thing about the devil card in the Rider-Waite-Smith, and I'm sure you've noticed that it's the same as the lovers, only they're changed.
Yeah.
So it's like what was beautiful has become turned inside out, upside down, and all that. Yeah. So does anybody have any questions or anything? Or
I've just figured out how to share my screen. There's a big green button at the bottom that I managed to miss. So let me see if I can do it.
All right, go for it. If you need any help, just ask.
There we go. I think I've got it. Okay.
There you
can
go.
you see that?
Yes. Well, yeah.
There we are. Oh, great.
Woo-hoo. Yes.
Oh, the hanged woman. She does look like a mermaid, and the dreamer looks like a mermaid. And the
see how
in the middle.
Yeah. So it wasn't really a spread or anything. It was almost just I was asking, what about this character? What about another? What about setting? And these were just what were coming up. So I kind of just went with it and managed to write 1,000 words very quickly to start my story off. And just looking at those, really helpful.
What I love about this is that I get the sense you weren't using an organized layout. You were just kind of following your intuition.
Yeah, I was just kind of. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different decks there, I think. 1, 2, 5 different decks. And I was kind of just, literally sort of going through it as I just felt called to each deck. So kind of worked really well, actually. It's probably the most sort of, the most kind of cohesive, here's a story on a plate for me, kind of reading that I've done in that type of way. Yeah.
I like the tunnel in the middle. It sort of suggests that you have to go really deep with this and not be afraid.
Yeah. Under the floorboards.
Yeah.
What I really appreciate when you pop that picture up there, because from my point of view, when I'm looking at it, it's calling to me. And the first thing that I saw when I saw the tunnel was that missing part in the middle of me.
Okay.
That I'm missing. And then I look around and see, the colors. The one thing that drew me in was the different colors from the different decks. Like you have the angel type and then the brightness. And then all of a sudden you've got the center of the darkness. And then it's like you're drawn to what you want to see the color, but that missing middle
just pulls you in the middle, doesn't it?
Pulling you in towards the absence of the colors. So I thought that was very interesting for me because it was telling my story when I was looking at it, even though you were the one that pulled the cards.
Yeah, how interesting.
Well,
well, that's the beauty of tarot.
Yeah.
Well, Jeannie mentioning the colors, that to me the top looks more like winter, spring, and the bottom with the colorful moon card is more like summer and fall, just with the colors.
Yeah, that's the seasons. Yeah. So, and that's the one thing about the tarot is there are all different interpretations. Like, Kris and Susan both have mentioned, it's all about personal response to whatever cards are drawn also, because even the decorations, the artistic part of it can pull out something.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Yeah.
Has anybody added a question?
Everybody's still just watching and listening. So they're enjoying it. Yeah, they're wanting to. Apparently, they're enjoying learning more about the tarot.
I'm going to. I'll find out. I can't remember the names of these different decks, but when we've finished, I'll write them in the chat. I don't know if people will be interested in to see what other decks these are. And I should have really brought them downstairs, but I'm in my husband's office tonight because my office is a bit of a mess.
Hey,
that's all right.
But so I'll make a note of them in the chat for you later.
Yeah,
perfect.
That would be great. I would be really interested.
Yeah. Do you guys want to go ahead and do the drawings before because we've still got about 20 minutes in your time slot.
Hold on, I'll just stop that. Okay.
Oh, what are we giving away? I'm sorry. I think I missed this.
Oh, that's
I think I did as well.
I think each of you were going to raffle a digital copy of your books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
that's
can
fi- yeah, that's
definitely.
fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Thanks for
And even though
reminding me. There's
Maria,
a lot going
yeah,
on.
even though Maria couldn't
Yes,
be
I
here,
can
okay.
definitely a digital copy of Unnatural Creatures, which
Yes,
right
yes.
here.
Yeah.
Thanks
Okay.
for reminding me. There's been a lot going on with my
Yeah,
Kickstarter.
the same.
Oh, that's okay.
And
Yes.
then Susan,
And
yours
I'm
is
actually
dark as the water.
I'm happy
Yeah,
to
that's
do either
fine.
an ebook or an audio book. Either is fine.
Oh,
Okay.
perfect.
Okay,
Yep.
great. All right, Jeannie, are you ready to spin the wheel?
Gotta bring up the wheel.
The
wheel
magic
of
wheel.
numbers.
The Poe is right.
Yes,
So
let me
the
double
price
check
is
to make
right.
sure we, I've got all the backers already.
Yeah, so this will be for Unnatural Creatures by Kris.
Okay, and here we go. Bum, ba-da-da, ba-ding. We're spinning. It's the Wheel of Fortune. And the lucky winner is number 2. Woohoo!
And who
Number
is that?
2. Number 2, we go way down here at the bottom. That would be Amanda Eschmeyer.
Okay.
I don't think she's joining us on the YouTube right now, but
Okay.
if you are, Amanda, and top in, you just won the ebook or audio book of Chris's, what was the name of it?
Unnatural Creatures.
Unnatural
Yes.
Creatures. I didn't want to get it wrong. All right.
Okay.
So congratulations, Amanda.
Yes. So our next ebook will raffle is Dark as the Water by Susan.
Yep. Here we go with a little spinning. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, sorry. I can't help it. Bonanza keeps playing in my mind. And the lucky winner is number 4.
Oh, we've already had a number 4.
What?
That was earlier. That was Jessica. So you need to spin it again.
Hold on. I actually double checked the numbers. No.
That's all right.
All right. So sorry, Jessica. You already won once. You can't win again. Just saying. Okay. So here we go again. I feel like I'm like looking at my Wheel of Fortune tarot here for the numbers. Okay. All right. Number 7.
And who is that?
Number 7 is Rowan.
All right.
Congratulations, Rowan. You just won an
Yes.
ebook of Dark is the Water. Is that right?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. Then we're also going to raffle Maria de Blasi's book, Conversations with the Tarot.
Yay. Even though, unfortunately, Maria was unable to join us.
Yes.
So she still wanted to go ahead and raffle it off.
Yeah, and we appreciate that.
All right. Number 11.
Okay.
Number 11 is Seamus Sands.
Okay. Congratulations.
I'm assuming it's Seamus. Seamus. It's an
Okay.
Irish, so I'm gonna pronounce it as Seamus. Sorry if I mispronounce it.
I think that's probably
Seamus, you won that. There we go. Now,
right.
ladies, if you will continue on the wonderful down road of the tarot, if you want to
Yeah.
continue.
Would you like me to pull a card for you?
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, you got pull Carmen's because mine already.
Would you
jumped.
like
Mine
the
already
Rider
did
Waite?
suicide.
Would you like the Rider Waite or the Goddess?
What should I do, Jeannie?
I did the goddess. You do the rider. though.
Okay, I'll do the writer.
I knew you were gonna say that. Okay, what's your question?
Well, my husband and I are going to be traveling a whole lot this month. So I
Okay.
guess just keeping it with the travels.
Yeah.
So
Being
what do you
safe.
need to know to make it a happy or some other
meeting.
question you're
You're
curious
meeting
about?
along the way.
Yeah, who I'm meeting along the way. Jeannie suggested that.
Yeah.
That'll be kind of a fun
All right, a
thing.
card to symbolize who you're meeting along the way. You let me know when you want me to stop.
Okay. All right, now,
Do you want me to cut the cards?
sure.
All right, does this feel good?
Yes.
Oh, okay, this is kind of intense.
Uh-oh.
Death, but you know what? But death doesn't symbolize what you think it is. It's more about, is there something that you're looking to close out and to move on? Like some kind of like endings and beginnings. Maybe it's like family stuff that needs closure, or
No, not really.
Or is there something in your past that you're visiting that you're
Well,
bringing
I
closure
think what
to?
it is what's going on with work.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
she's having some issues with some co-workers and about how she's
Well,
feeling
let's-
undecision.
Yeah, that probably would relate. Yeah.
Well, the tarot often tells us what we really need to know rather than what we ask. So I think there's something about looking upon this as the end of an era, if you will, and
Okay.
then not having anything to do with Taylor Swift tours, but
Thank goodness.
but just look upon it that, you know, you've mastered what you needed to, and you're just really ready to move on, and to
Okay.
use it as a way to kind of create closure.
Okay.
And let's choose one more, so we'll end on a little less of an intense note.
Maybe yours will jump at you.
I can shuffle until I have a jumper if you want. Some clients like me to do that.
Okay. That'd be kind of fun.
All right. Oh, all right. I've got the 6 of Staves, and this is a card of triumph. It's also the Poet's Laurels, as you'll notice as well. It's also a card about traveling and moving forward, like to have confidence and to feel good about things, that even though whatever you've been through, if you're feeling bad, or there's something better on the other side, and to let others appreciate you as well.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
I think for me, it's interesting how both of those cards have a white horse on them as well.
That's
I
right.
always sort of pick up on
That's
little things
absolutely
like
right.
that.
It's like that's the interesting aspect.
They're both going the same direction as well, aren't they?
Yes, that there's all this mirroring if you look at them. Like I often say that sometimes the minor arcana cards mirror the major arcana cards, but on a more mundane level. Like I always think that the 9 of Pentacles is very similar to the Empress card, because they're both women and they're fecund and they're in this garden. But one is really about like the bigger picture of the things that we create in our lives, and the one is more about the everyday sensuality and prosperity and other things, but they have very similar themes.
Okay, well, Kris, one of our watchers on YouTube would like you to pull a card for her from the goddess,
Sure.
stack. And her question was, what does she need to know basically right now? She's like, what I need to know.
All right, so yeah, that's a great question.
And her name's Holly.
Hi, Holly. Thanks for tuning in. Can Holly tell me when to stop shuffling, or should I just go by what I feel?
You probably just need to go by what you feel, because there's a lag from.
Yeah, there definitely is. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to choose this card. We've got the 9 of Cups. This is an interesting card because I remember I was talking about the mundane versions of major arcana cards. In the major arcana, one of the cards that's kind of referred to as the wish card, or the follow your bliss card even, is number 17, which is the star. This, to my mind, the 9 of Cups is the mundane version of it, because it really is about, like, what do you want? What are your wishes? How can you fulfill this? And to be open to it, kind of like a sense of, it's different than the 9 of Pentacles, which is more about sensuality. This is more like in a sense of emotional richness, as well as like feasting and connecting with your family and being very receptive to positive emotions. The card that precedes this is the 8 of Cups, which is a lot of times a card about you've learned your lesson and you're moving on. And here is that you're able to really take pleasure in what you've learned and to connect with others. So that's what you need to know right now, Holly, and I hope that's helpful to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Kris, what's your favorite card?
My favorite card? Oh gosh, that's like asking a mother.
What do you like? And it always comes up. You're like, yes.
Well, I can tell you the cards that, remember we were talking about 4 stories? There are 2 cards that always call to me. And that is number 8, Strength. And number 17, the Star. And when you think about it, if you want to get a woo-woo, the Star is number 17. You put 1 and 7 together, you get an 8, and 8 is Strength. So those are the cards that I always pull a lot and I feel really resonate with. The card, it's not that it's my least favorite, it's one that I just have a hard time. I mean, I understand it intellectually, but emotionally I don't, is number 14, which is Temperance, which is more about balance and trust and stuff. And that's something I always struggle with. I think a lot of us artists, we want our extreme experiences. And, you know, we tend to be very emotionally keyed in. So the idea of taking a step back and, you know, tempering whatever it is that we feel isn't something that actually comes very organically to us.
I'd agree with that, because whenever I get that, I'm always kind of like, oh, and I almost don't even, I sort of sometimes just skip over it and don't even really spend any time with it, I suppose, because it doesn't seem very neither here nor there, because it's obviously all about the middle
Well,
road in a way, isn't it? The
if you
balance.
think about where temperance falls in the major arcana, it's after 13, which is death,
Mhm.
which is like the ending and a beginning, transformation, I call it in the goddess tarot. Then there's 14, which is temperance. And then number 15 is the devil, which is about imbalance. So it's sort of in between that helps to kind of place temperance in its place.
Yeah.
And also usually the woman has a connection between the earth and the water, as well as air. So it's just about like being in touch with these elements and using them to, in a kind of alchemical way. It's a little different from the magician who has all the different, you know, he's got the 4 elements there that connect to the major arcana, minor arcanas.
So did you, in the goddess tarot, what did you do when you reached temperance? Did you sort of call it temperance, or did you call it something else, or?
I called it balance.
Okay, right. Maybe you said it earlier and I
and
missed
it's
it.
connected with a goddess, a very beautiful goddess actually, called Yamanya, who is connected to the Caribbean Sea, and they call her Holy Queen Sea, and she's just very serene and full of grace. So that's like a great role model if you're
it's quite a
feeling
good
kind
match.
of literally out of balance.
Very cool. And you said this is the 25th anniversary, right? For the goddess?
It is, yeah. And this is the book that I currently have on my Kickstarter, which is full color throughout. And you can see the goddesses.
Very cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And here's another one. This is a drawing of Gaia that I created. I'm like, where is my screen? Because I'm up there. And there's like different things for each particular card, as well as layouts that I created.
Just going to ask you that actually. Have you got any of your own layouts that you do or you prefer?
Oh, I've got lots of layouts. I mean, I'm very intuitive, but here, let me tell you one that I made up that I like a lot. I call it the glow and grow, which is, you know, what do we do when we're writers and you're doing critique? First you give the glow, then you give the grow. So basically you choose a card to symbolize your project. It's very simple, 4 cards, choose 4 cards. And you can do it at random, or you could do it very consciously. Like, that's one thing, is that a lot of times with the tarot, we're always using the card to randomize, but it's always also powerful to actually look at the cards and consciously choose them. So you have 4 cards. One card chooses your project, symbolizes your project. 1, what's working, the glow. The grow is what you need to work on. And then the last card is just the way forward. Very simple, 4 cards. That's what you can do. So that's one that I like. It's simple, cuts to the chase.
I might
and then
try
of course
that
you
tomorrow.
can choose other cards. Do it. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I may have to try it myself when I get home.
Yeah, so the glow and grow. So that's in here. Let me find the page for that. I think it looks really pretty. I have really simple ways to work with the cards, as well as more complex ways. So here's the glow and grow. Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do have one question concerning the colors for the goddess. The cards, did you choose the colors based on what the goddess may represent? Because I know, like we were talking earlier, that colors and lack thereof, or just the artistry, draws people in and draws different connections for certain people. So when you were creating it, did that have any influence on the cards? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That's a great question, and absolutely I did. For what I did was, for each of the major arcanas, you probably notice that they have a border. So each of the borders are different because they relate to the elements that are associated with the particular suit. And one of the reasons I did that was because I wanted this to be the kind of reading card deck that when you were working on it, you could just kind of look at a glance and know what was going on. So if you look down, you saw a lot of red, you would kind of know, there's staves, a lot of creative energy. If there's a lot of, more like grays and stuff, it's different. The goddesses, each of them though, have their own color palette, if you will, but the minors, I was very conscious about it, like, making it feel, let me find here's the cups there, which is very like blue and watery and mysterious. And then we have the staves, which are fiery.
Nice.
So yeah, I thought about that a lot. And the nice thing about being a creator of your own tarot deck is that you can make the kind of deck that you want to work with. So that's what I did, even though there's a lot of tarot decks I work with and I love. But at that time, 25 years ago, this was what I wanted. And I think that it must have resonated, because here we are 25 years later and it's still in print, which I'm very, very grateful.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
that's great.
Yeah. And Susan, your work, Dark is the Water, what's kind of led you to the, I'm one big on the words too, but also the picture that I get when I read that Dark is the Water, because water is not one of, well, it's my element, one of my elements. It's my rising sign. So it's like, ooh, I like that. So, and it goes well. But what was your inspiration? I guess is what I'm asking.
I think for me is I write a lot of stuff which could be classed as sort of horror, really, but it's never sort of gory or sort of just horror for blood's sake or whatever. It's never like that. But for me, it's a lot of it's about the mysteries of the natural world, as we were talking about earlier, and the fact that the ocean is actually probably less explored than some parts of space, and it's just, we really don't know what's actually there, and it's on our own planet. And for me, it's just that mystery, and leads me to imaginative thought about what could be there. So that's kind of where it came from. And it is the title from one of the stories as well, from inside the book. So it's kind of a lot. Most of those stories, again, are to do with sort of characters transforming. So, but in a quite sort of eco-feminist kind of way. So it's all kind of to do with the natural world in the same way.
Cool.
Nice. And you're right. I mean, it is, to me, it ties very well in with the tarot, because whether it be in reality of what may lie under the ocean or what might lie in space, but it's also about what lies inside of us. We don't know what might be lurking.
Yeah.
The collective unconscious, if you will, even.
Exactly. So, but ladies, we are very happy that you joined us for the launch, and
this has been a great conversation.
It has.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for having us. And Susan, it was fun to connect with you.
Yeah, it was really nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
let me know how things go with after your tarot readings. I want to know how your trip goes. I want to know how your family is and all that good stuff.
All right. We'll be happy to. Yeah, I'm letting it live for right now. So yeah,
that's right. Protect yourself. That's right.
Holidays are coming around the corner. So.
Oh yeah, those are always fun, aren't they?
But thank you once again for joining us for the launch party, and we look forward to hearing more from you. And good luck with your Kickstarter, Kris.
Thank you.
Your 25th anniversary cards. And Susan, we look forward to reading more of your wonderful work.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a nice perfect rest of the night goes well, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.